Hello and welcome to the Daily Climate Show, where we track the changes to our world and investigate some of the potential solutions to the climate crisis. The world is on course to add as much renewable power generation in the next 5 years as it has done in the last 20. That's according to new analysis. A UN chief warns that we are at war with nature, and that's ahead of the COP15 Biodiversity Summit in Montreal. And campaigners are calling on the government to increase hedgerows by 40% by 2050 to boost wildlife and farming. Hello, welcome to the Daily Climate Show. As I said there, we're tracking the changes to our world and investigating some of the potential solutions to the climate crisis. Now, as I said earlier on, the world is on course to add as much renewable power generation in the next 5 years as it has done in the last 20. And that's according to new analysis that's come in. A report from the International Energy Agency says energy security fears caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine have motivated nations to increasingly look at renewables, such as solar and wind, to reduce reliance on imported and expensive fossil fuels. Now, this means renewables could overtake coal as the main source of global energy in the next 5 years. Now, renewable power capacity is now expected to grow by 2,400 gigawatts between 2022 and 2027, an amount equal to the entire power capacity of China today. And that expected increase is 30% higher than the amount of growth that was forecast just a year ago. And the report also found that renewables are set to account for more than 90% of global electricity expansion over the next 5 years, overtaking coal to become the largest source of global electricity by early 2025. Well, the chief executive of the Global Wind Energy Council, Ben Backwell, joins me now. Ben, it's great to have you with us on the programme. Have you been surprised looking at the report by these latest findings?
Hi, Vanessa, and thanks for having me on. No, I'm not surprised. And in fact, we have raised our own forecast as well in the wind industry. I mean, what we're seeing is much bigger government targets around the world and higher ambition. And I think that's what we're seeing reflected in this report. And that's not surprising given everything that's happening with the energy crisis, with fossil fuel volatility, with the invasion of Ukraine. We fully expect to see this and higher growth in the coming years.
And are there any particular countries that stand out to you?
Well, I guess the good news is that the very big countries, the US and China and India, lead in this according to the IEA's research. And again, that's how we see things. I guess the bad news is that everywhere else needs to speed up as well. And I think to put a slightly different light on this, I mean, we will get to, for our industry, over 100 gigawatts a year of wind energy next year. We were hoping to get there this year. But that's still only about a third of what we need to get to the IEA's net zero scenario. So today's report's really good news, and it's showing the building momentum. But there's still a lot more that needs to be done to actually implement this and get all this capacity built on the ground.
Well, you mentioned speed there. Do you have any reservations at all? Because it is happening at such a rapid speed.
I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, Vanessa, what's happening is people setting higher targets, and we continue to grow at a pretty good speed. But what's required for net zero requires even more speed. And everywhere we still face a lot of issues around planning and bureaucracy and getting things approved. And the IEA in its report says that we could actually increase the rate of deployment by 25% just by fixing some of these issues around policy and regulation. So we're far from complacent, because we know in nearly every case, for instance, it takes longer to permit an offshore wind farm than it does to actually build it. And things shouldn't be like that, obviously.
So from your point of view, then, these targets are realistic?
I think they're realistic, and I think we've shown over the years that renewables had phenomenal growth, both wind and solar, and we've consistently outperformed people's predictions. But there's a lot of work that needs to go into this to really make this happen in time to be the solution that we need to be for the climate crisis. So I'm pretty optimistic, and I think our whole industry stands ready to deliver. but there's a lot that needs to happen to make this real and to deliver on time.
Ben, thank you very much indeed. As Ben Backwell there speaking to me. Thank you. Now,
Thank
also
you.
making climate news today. Campaigners are calling on the government to increase hedgerows by 40% by 2050. The charity CPRE says more hedges would boost wildlife and climate action. Hedges provide food and shelter for animals, birds and insects. The European Union has agreed a new law guaranteeing products sold in the EU are not linked to the destruction of forests. That's according to the UN. An area larger than the EU was lost to deforestation globally between 1990 and 2020, with the European Union countries responsible for around 10% of the loss. The new law will require all companies to issue a due diligence statement in order to sell products like coffee, cocoa and wood on the EU market. And remember the hosepipe ban? Well, I certainly do. Well, some of them are still in place, would you believe, but they're being lifted. Yorkshire Water has become the latest water supply to lift the ban after recent rainfall refilled its reservoirs. There are still hosepipe bans that are in place in other areas, Cornwall and parts of Devon too. The COP15 Biodiversity Summit kicks off in Montreal tomorrow with delegates from across the world discussing the ways to protect the earth and animals and also the ecosystems. Now, environmental leaders are calling for ambitious plans to preserve the globe, with a UN Environment Chief warning that we are at war with nature and we must make peace. But with no major world leaders due to attend the summit, there are concerns that the necessary commitments will not be made. Well, our science correspondent Thomas Moore joins us now. And Thomas, some stark warning there coming in from the UN.
Very much so, and the reason is that across the planet, the abundance and variety of life is in free fall. 1 million species of plants and animals are threatened with extinction, and it's not just the loss of those creatures that is causing alarm. They are just the symptom of an underlying crisis in nature that will also affect us because nature provides us with the clean water to drink, the food to eat, the air to breathe. So this is something that is beginning to get through to world leaders, that this really counts. Nature's not just nice to have, it is essential, it is our life support. And that's why you're hearing these very strong warnings from the United Nations Environment Programme. However, as you say, world leaders will not be there, and that is causing some dismay. Of course, they were queuing up to be seen at the climate conference in Egypt, but this is going to be a lower key affair where it's going to be left to ministers and delegates to thrash out this essential blueprint on protecting biodiversity, trying to reverse that loss of nature by 2030. Not much time left, but this is something that they're determined to do. So you're going to see some call to protect 30% of the land and sea area by 2030, to reduce pesticide use, to reduce the amount of deforestation, remove agricultural subsidies, this kind of really important stuff that, pull it all together, will help nature survive despite all those threats that include changes from human impacts, but also from climate change too. It is reaching a crunch point, and the UN says we do need to act now.
Absolutely. Tom, thank you. And that's almost it from us today. But just a reminder that you can watch Tom Heap's Climate Show on Saturdays and Sundays at 3:30 in the afternoon or at 7:30 in the evening. And if you have any questions about climate change that you want answered, very simple, just send those questions to us using that QR code, which is on your screen right now, and we'll try to answer as many as we can on Tom's show. But for now, that's it from me. Thanks for watching. Have a lovely day. Bye for now.